if you're servicing a particular industry or niche, you may be underestimating how much domain knowledge you acquired over the years. That's my role, is to help educate and manage the expectation of the buyer, and to a great degree also the seller as well. If they can't improve the business, that means they can never improve their capital.
What is up, all my crazy agency talented motherfuckers? I'm sitting with the man himself right now, Alex Nghiem, who's actually written 2 books specifically about selling agencies. And Alex is a guy who's got a stable of buyers. He's technically a broker, but he's so much more than that, because he actually helps people to arrange financing, put the deals together, all sorts of contracts, paperwork, things like that. But Alex, we've had a couple of conversations here over the week, and at least 10 people have told us, when you told them that they could sell their agency, we're surprised to learn that somebody would buy them. I'm not big enough yet. I don't have enough of this figured out. I'm not systematized. Let's talk about, what are some of the reasons somebody would actually want to buy an agency in the first place?
Sure. So, to your point, right? I'm a business broker. So for those of you that may not know what that means, it's kind of like, think of it easily. It's kind of like a realtor, except instead of selling your house, I'm selling your business, in this case an agency. There's more to it than that, but that will give you kind of some context. To answer your question, there's a variety of reasons, and some people are actually pleasantly surprised how sellable, or as we use the term, exitable, an agency is, right? So the obvious buyers are going to be another agency owner,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes people are surprised, like, well, why would an agency owner buy another agency? If they already have one, then why buy it, right? Well, they may have an agency, but they have a particular maybe set of services, and they may be buying another agency because they don't have that service. So, like for example, we recently helped somebody sell their agency, and I believe it was an SEO agency, and the company that was basically buying them did more like they manage like paid ads, like Facebook, Google, that kind of thing. So they just want to have that skill set because they've had clients approach them, and they kept farming it out. Right. And then over the years, they realized, wow, we farmed out a lot of business. We got a small referral fee.
Yeah.
But they couldn't really control the user experience. And in some cases, they ended up, so that was one thing. The other one that a lot of folks don't know is a SaaS company, because we represent agency and also SaaS companies as well, tech or software companies, right? And so a lot of time, a SaaS company or a tech company, one of the biggest line item, that is, things that they spend money on a regular basis, monthly, quarterly, whatever, is marketing.
Yeah.
And so they'll, it's not uncommon for a SaaS company or a tech company to spend, thousands of dollars a month. And so they realize, like, again, they send out their hire an external agency. They know they're just one of many other agencies, right?
Yeah.
And so the growth of their business is highly dependent on using this agency. So then some SaaS companies will then look at bringing it in-house, so they have, again, more control. Then there's also
Can I just add before you go to that point, because the first point you made earlier, I think of a friend of mine who's got a relatively big agency, and they're in 3 different industries, and now they're looking to break into a 4th. And one of the things he asked me is, who do you know who's at 500,000 to 2 million, who's in this industry specifically, because we want to break into it. And it's a lot faster just to acquire it than to spend 5-10 years building up expertise in an industry. We'd rather just buy our way into it.
Right. So you brought up a really good, interesting point too. A lot of time they'll want to enter a particular niche, depending on what part of the country or you're from. And it's a very solid point, because if you're servicing a particular industry or niche, you may be underestimating how much domain knowledge you acquired over the years, right? Like, say, so for example, if you're an agency and you work with roofers, you may take for granted that you've already overcome the learning curve. So you're like, well, I mean, hey, this stuff's kind of like pretty straightforward, right? It's straightforward to you because you've been doing it for the last several years, right? So another company that says, hey, they may be, by the way, just as a broad statement, home services right now, super hot. Okay. Yeah. So, they may be the other company.
When he says hot, he means like,
right, very, very desirable, right?
Like this.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of time they'll want to basically enter an industry that there's a lot of growth in, because the industry that they're in, that they're servicing, may be flat, right? So again, very broad statement, and this may not apply, forever. But as of this video shooting, there's a lot of turmoil right now in the realtor market.
Yeah.
So if you're an agency servicing the realtor market, you may be seeing a lot of ups and downs, not because of anything you're doing, but the macro trends in that industry. There's a lot of, there's a lot of choppiness, for lack of a better word. So an agency say, wow, like, our future is dependent upon, certain regulatory stuff that we have no control over. So why don't we go buy something that's a lot more stable, or better, that's growing? So the agency that's got the means to do it, they may, like you said, they may want to buy an agency in another niche that may be smaller than them, but it gives them a fast foothold to the industry.
Correct.
And there's another. And
I just want to add, because a lot of you guys think that from the conversations I've had, you have to have all these things in place first before you're completely sellable. And obviously, like, there's a lot of reasons to do those things. And usually, by the way, like when we're talking like systematizing, organizing it, usually by the time you do all that, you don't want to sell it anyway, because it finally runs itself. But there are other reasons people would still acquire you, as kind of Alex is mentioning, even if you're not fully perfectly where you'd want to be. So that's kind of like the point of this, because we've had this conversation a few times with a couple of people where Alex and I have been hanging out for 3 days, and people are like, really? Someone would buy this thing as it is? And you're like, yes, they really would.
Yeah. So I always tell people, right? Like, and I have the same conversation with a buyer. They say, well, yeah, we want this and this and this. Say, well, that's great. If you want that agency, that business can be worth, and it's gonna, you have to pay this, very, very high amount. They're like, well, why? So, well, because at that point, then the thing is almost perfect, right? So it's kind of like, do you want to buy, a collectible car that's literally, there's only 5 or 10 of them in the world, right? So I always tell buyers this, or as I call them, acquire, just to avoid the confusion, is like, you want an agency that you can improve, or business that you can improve, right? So if you're working with something like myself, my role is not just, by the way, this is why, to Frankie's, I appreciate the context. We do more than just, hey, you got a business, let's throw it up on a website and then we're done, right? We spend a lot of time.
Yeah, we were actually talking about like business brokers as a whole, which is not Alex, just so you guys know, but they have like a sleazy reputation the same way that real estate agents, because what does most real estate agents do? They list it on a website, the MLS, and then they sit around and wait and see if anybody's interested. And he does really like Swiss Army knife. There's so many ways he helps you find buyers, put it together, make the deal happen, paperwork, funding, legal,
right?
Sometimes even help with the tax burden and all those kind of things. He's a very proactive kind of guy. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Right. So just to help you put some context, right? I've owned my own, business. I've sold my own business. I've been consulting. I've helped people, so that's why, I use the term business broker because it's a common term, but we do a lot more than that, to your point. So back to what we're saying about like, selling the thing. We tell our acquirers that if, again, there's different tiers, right? If they're looking at buying something, say at, say $500,000 to $1 million, they can't expect everything to be in place, right? Because just the organization just hasn't had enough time nor the infrastructure or the resources to build everything out.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at selling something between 5 and 10 million, that's a different ball game, right? There's a lot more expectation. There's going to have to be a management team. Like SOP's got to be, so there's different levels of expectation. Now, the buyer doesn't know that. That's my role, okay? Again, that's what we do on behalf of our client, is we help educate this. Because what you don't want to do is come on a call and say, well, you're trying to ask, let's pick a number, right? You're trying to ask $2 million for this business. How come this? That's a very awkward conversation to have. That's my role, is to help, educate and manage the expectation of the buyer, and to a great degree also the seller as well.
Yeah.
So to, just to wrap it up, it just depends on what asking price is. And of course, as you can imagine, the higher the asking price, there's a higher level of expectation that everything is, more of it is already figured out.
Yeah.
But again, there's no perfect business, right? I always tell people, right? If you go to Apple, for crying out loud, if you look long enough, and it wouldn't take like a year, probably 34 months, they probably have a list of stuff that they wish they could be doing better.
Yeah.
And this is our,
Can I just throw that out there? Because in a former life, I used to work for the Ford Motor Company. And, when I first started working with like big attorneys, I always had this idea, like, you guys are doing $150 million. You obviously got it all figured out. Any of you guys have ever worked a corporate job? Did that company seem like they had it all figured out? Or was it a shit show of stupid fucking meetings and stupid people and like bureaucracy and nonsense and paperwork and just a big circle jerk of going nowhere? That's probably more your experience. So like, to Alex's point, like there's holes in any business. So a lot of times you guys think because I got holes in mine that nobody would buy it.
Right.
And to his point, the appeal is often that the holes you have are the one thing they're good at. So it'd be easy for them to fix the holes and therefore like double or triple the value. Like I have a friend, maybe watching this, named Josh, who likes to buy a lot of businesses around Oklahoma, and he looks for service businesses that have good team, good management, good reputation, good service. People like them. They don't know how to market themselves. They never built a website. They survived 20 years on word of mouth. That's an easy thing for everybody here to fix, right?
Right.
And so for them, that business, they may think, well, how are we sellable when we don't have a website, we don't have a social media presence and stuff. But for somebody like Josh, like that's an easy fix for him to come in, and therefore he can like 2 and 3x an already good business that already has all the infrastructure he needs. And I'm just kind of making that point because a lot of times the holes you guys think you have that prevent you are the very thing the buyer is interested in getting it for.
And again, not to my own horn, but that's my role, right? Is I want every potential acquirer or buyer, again, if you're a client of ours, that's our role, right? Is we tell them, yes, that area can be improved, but that's why that's why you want to buy it. It sounds very counterintuitive, right? Because because there's a very big misconception which I want to get out of the way. Most people think that selling a business like selling a house at a 50,000 foot, 100,000 foot view, that's true. But once you look past that, it's very different. If you buy a house, if you want to live in it, you want the whole house for the most part, especially if you're a couple, to be pristine, right? Because you don't want, the walls to have cracks or whatever, because you want to move in it.
That Unless you like living in a crack shack, no judgment.
Yeah, no judgment. But with a business, that's actually the opposite. The buyer, again, that's part of my role, is I actually want to tell the buyer that there's areas here that you want to improve, because if they can't improve the business, that means they can never improve their capital.
Yeah.
Because because people buy a business with the expectation there's areas of improvement.
Yeah.
Because that's how they can accelerate the payment.
It's more like a fix and flip kind of house where you're looking at it like, I'm looking for some drywall and paint and minor stuff that I can come in and
exactly,
fix.
and that can quickly recoup the ROI. So again, we don't want to belabor that point. The other one that doesn't happen as often, but it's happening more increasing, is right now there's a lot of, again, if you're watching this video 35 years from now, that may not be true, but right now there's still a lot of uncertainty in the commercial real estate market.
Yeah.
So now what we're seeing is that people that have traditionally invested in the stock market, in other what are known asset classes, commercial real estate or whatnot. And again, if you're in the agency business, right, you may take this for granted, but as an asset class, agencies actually have very high cash flow for what you spend, right? Like for example, if you buy a commercial property, you're happy if you can get your money back in 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
But agency, because it's a new asset class, they don't get value at 10 to 12x. And so therefore, if they're used to like say, wow, it takes us 10 to 12 years to get our money back, and they come along and say, well, we can get our money back a lot faster.
Yeah.
Once they get their head around it, it's like, wow, that's actually pretty desirable. Because agencies have very low capital requirement.
Yeah.
If you ever own a commercial building, you know what I'm talking about. There's like a crap load of money you have to spend on upkeep,
property and maintenance.
Right. So again, it's increasing. I wouldn't say this is the main group, but this is an often overlooked group of potential buyers.
Yeah.
And so when we market a business, we just don't go after the obvious one. We go after the, for lack of a better word, the unobvious ones too, because that increases our pool of available buyers as well. Anyway.
Love it. So we wanted to put this session together. We appreciate you coming on here so you guys can see why somebody would want to buy your agency. And actually, like in many ways, I hope you guys are learning to appreciate your warts and things that are broken and cracked, and the smelly rug you don't want to show anybody in the back room, because that's the very reason they'd want to acquire you, to get their capital back. Alex, for anybody who's interested in potentially talking to you and saying, is my agency sellable? Potentially what could we get for it? And realistically, they're at the stage. And by the way, I just want to throw that out there. We've been talking about this. My first agency, after 10 years, I was just burnt out and decided one day to burn it to the ground. Don't recommend it, but I did. If I had known somebody like him, like my life would have been way better. So if you guys are at that point where you're ready to like just get out, like don't, but where can folks like kind of take the next step? And we'll make sure to get you guys a digital copy of Alex's book as well.
Yeah. So probably the two channels I use, I'm most active on is really my email and my I'll use the number that's also monitored by my staff. So email is alex@exitable agency. That's exit able, EXIT able agency.com. AlexExitableAgency.com.
He doesn't know it, but I'm signing him up for some Viagra newsletters, and he's going to use my affiliate link to buy it.
Hey, no judgment.
Got to make money somehow, right?
Right. And then the other one is really my the number that's it's not just me, but my team also monitors it. It's at 512-200 8776, 512-200-8776. So just
Cool.
email me or just text me at one of those
Cool.
numbers.
I also have a form for you guys that I'll put below here where you can put in all your details, and then I'll get Alex up to speed on that real quick so that you guys are doing that. But you guys, man, if you're looking to sell your agency, don't be crazy like me and burn it to the ground. Call somebody like this and go sell it while it's still worth something, and get paid for what you built.
Yeah. Look, if you have it for, there's a saying, right, that's very common to say that, the real estate, your house is going to be your biggest probably financial transaction. That's not the case if you're a business owner. Again, unless you happen to be living in a, multi-million-dollar penthouse somewhere in New York. More often than not, if you're a business owner, the biggest financial transaction in your life is going to be selling your business.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are so many ways of doing it wrong. Because I've been down this road myself. I botched, a couple of my own exits. I always tell people, look, I'm not smarter than you. I just happen to have made more mistakes than you. That's all there is to it. And so, to Frankie's point, please reach out. I mean, it's really heartbreaking, telling somebody, say, man, I wish we'd met 6-12 months earlier. I could have helped you gotten a lot more money for this, or made the business a lot more sellable than it is right now. So it's better to reach out earlier than wait. Oh, well, I'll do that, someday. It's better to have a conversation sooner than later.
Someday is usually never, by the way, just so you guys know. Most people who say someday don't do it. So anyways, we'll put some links for you guys. We appreciate you guys watching this, and happy exits, my friends.
Buy my book, or I will show up at your house and give you a 2-hour, 45-minute power presentation called A Retrospective, All the Ways in Which You Disappointed Me.